Hey everybody, welcome back to Business and Life Stories with James and Mike. I'm Mike, he's James. This week we have our super talented, really amazing guest, Irina Crigan is with us. Irina, how are you doing?
Very good, Michael. Thank you so much for having me. I'm excited.
So you have accomplished so many things in a relatively short time. You know, of course, you're really good on transformational leadership. You've been going on podcasts and talking to people. You're also, pretty big wheel at the National Bank of Canada. And for those of you who are follow our investing portfolios, that company is NTIOF. It's traded on the over-the-counter markets, and since about mid 2019, their stock's gone almost straight up. So I'm sure Irina has had a big hand in making that happen.
We're trading over the counter. Wow. I didn't know that ticker.
That's the one on the American Exchange. So you're in Quebec, Canada, but you don't have a French accent. What's that all about?
Okay, so actually, originally, I'm from Moldova. I moved to Canada 11 years ago. So when I'm thinking about it, I don't know when the time flew by, So my mother tongue is Romanian. So both of the languages, English and French, are foreign languages to me that I learned at school as well. So this is how I happen to maybe not have a French accent, because it's either one of them is not my mother tongue. So yeah.
Well, James is English, as we all know, so I'm sure he has his own opinion of French accents.
I can't master one. So as I said, the way to be good at a foreign language is to have a girlfriend, or I'm a partner there, and I never had a French girlfriend. So there we go, my French accent. I struggle enough with the English one, so I like to keep things simple.
Well, here in Texas, we continue to butcher the Queen's English and show you how it's done. So. Irina, how did you make the decision to come from Moldova to Canada? Why Canada? Why not Texas or New Zealand or somewhere else?
Yeah, very good question. It's going to be cliche, I came for opportunities that this country could possibly offer. And actually, that was not of the main reasons. I was with my then husband, actually, who I met while I was, I think, in my second year of university, third year of university, I believe. And that was a common project. We wanted to move to Canada because we couldn't actually settle down in none of the countries. He actually is Iranian. He is because, well, he's my ex-husband, but he is still. I mean, so he's Iranian. I'm Moldovan. So, it was a little bit difficult to settle in either of the countries. So we said, okay, so we'll choose, kind of third party country, and we'll just settle down there. And we had like big dreams. That's how we moved back in 2010 to Canada.
And how did you make the transition from, I understand in university, you have a master's in languages and literature. That's a big shift to doing finance.
Yeah, absolutely. So basically, when not only did I have to move, and just like, I guess, change countries, but as well, divorce, change professional trajectories, and I guess just get to finally start knowing at least who I was, because I realized that for 25 years, I didn't know who I was. So, I'm sorry, what was your question?
So the question about how you made that transition, what I'm leading up to is with your job with finance and
That's it.
Transformational
Exactly.
leadership as well. You help people make transitions. So we're asking a little bit about how you made yours.
Yeah, absolutely. So again, I'm coming from this linguistical background, right? I studied foreign languages at the university. I have as well a master's actually in English and French philology. So again, when I happened to remain here alone in Canada, divorced, I couldn't pursue like studies. I couldn't go to school because I needed to kind of, be able to how do I say that? Now I'm looking for words, like earn my living, right? Basically. So I couldn't go to school at the time. So because I was so good at languages, I interviewed, I think it was in the first months that I was in Canada, with this asset manager. So it's an asset management boutique, and it was for an administrative role that I was actually hired for. And this is how everything started, like in my financial, let's say, career, if I can say so. So I started with them. At the time, they used to have around 4.5 billion in assets under management, and they're a company that is managing portfolios in the healthcare sector, which I didn't know anything about, right? And I was doing administrative work with them, and one day the CEO of the company came and he left some books on my table, and he said, "Would you be interested in studying a little bit more about Canadian securities?" And I'm like, "Canadian securities? What is it even, right?" And yeah, so I started actually taking courses in Canadian securities, and we have here actually the Canadian Securities Institute. And I passed my exams with this, and I got my license and as an investment representative. I still stayed with that asset manager company for 2.5 years. And as I was there, I took over other responsibilities. I was helping them with marketing and business development. Then I was helping them as well with compliance. And in 2013, a friend of mine referred me at the bank, at National Bank, where actually I'm currently working. So this is how it got a little bit more rolling in the financial services industry.
So in asset management, what are some of the big mistakes and some of the big good things that you see your clients do?
Well, I don't know if I'm the right person to talk about it. Could you be more specific, Michael? What do you mean, like the common mistakes? You mean trading mistakes or
mistakes of thought? James and I have delved into this with various people from different types of businesses, and you're really the first banker we've had on. So we're curious what you see.
Yeah, you see, like again, I started with a subsidiary of ours, an entity which is the self-directed brokerage. So you see, we were not allowed to give any advice to our clients. So they're basically autonomous investors, and usually the instructions we would have, it's basically for those clients that were unable to do their trading online. So they call and do their transactions over the phone with the rep. So I wouldn't know what to say exactly. Like, it depends. Like there were all kind of clients, right? There were the day traders, there were the long-term investors, again, the speculators. So I wouldn't know where you want to take the conversation, but if you're willing to go more into detail, maybe yeah.
Sure. Let's talk about those three types for a moment. So between the long-term investor, the day trader, and the pure speculators, which ones have you noticed have higher stress levels? Which ones are more confident? Which ones do you think or which of those three lines of thought do you think is best for long-term asset growth?
Well, it depends, right? It's all about the mental game, I think, right? And there's a good portion that you have to be really good at managing your emotions. So it depends as well, right on your on your risk ratios, like I don't know what to say.
That's okay.
I've only relatively recently started dabbling in investing, and I never realized what a mental game the importance and the degree of the mental game, and I kind of found it fascinating. I mean, Mike's my closest mentor, but then I've read materials and from his mentors, and I think it's funny because the mental game is talked about in coaching circles, isn't it? It's talked about in high performance. It's talked about in entrepreneurial circles. But I'd never come across it talked about in financial, like being an outsider. It was a new world, and I'm still really just like dabbling on the edges. But even that, it gives a doorway into how much of a mental game it actually is, right? And I think that's really fascinating.
Yeah. So again, yeah, go ahead, Michael.
Let's try to rephrase this question a little bit. So I want our audience to know how brilliant you are. When you started getting involved in transformational leadership, and you've been on the Two Perspectives podcast with Linda Tilson and doing these kinds of things, you're carrying in a lot of wisdom that our audience can really benefit from. Changing languages, changing cultures, changing countries, changing husbands. These are a lot of shifts, a lot of really deep shifts. And you've had to manage your own emotions and your own mental game through all that. And then, of course, being an asset manager and helping people with their investments, you can't get too emotional about other people's money because we bear a lot of responsibility handling other people's money. But still, the decisions need to belong to them. So how have you handled all this kind of mental pressure and shifts? What are some things that you do, some practices or things in your life that help you stay centered and help you stay calm? Or do you not? Do you just sometimes punch holes in the wall and then go back to work?
Yeah, actually, yeah, that's a very good question, Michael. So basically, first of all, just to let you know, so in the first subsidiary I worked for, we were not allowed to give any investment advice. This is the nature of the business. Okay. So then when I moved later on in the portfolio management team, we were doing a lot of the asset management allocation. So we have an open architecture, and we actually hire advisors that do all of the let's say stock picking, and all of the active management in the back. We're doing the asset allocation part. So just to make it clear, I was less exposed to any front client facing. It was almost always in the back, more on the operational side, if you wish. So to be honest with you, I've never been passionate about markets. Okay, I like took my, let's say, dose of trading. Okay, and that was kind of fun. I think we all do it, especially like when I used to work as an investment rep, and I enjoyed it, as much as I speculated, to be honest with you, as much as I was able to invest for my own RSP account, but I didn't really manage money, nor did I have to maintain any relationships with the clients from the experience that I've had. When I realized that I wanted to, again, pivot, and I as well have actually a license in compliance, this is when I started more and more thinking that I want to go more towards a compliance, role. And currently, last year, I actually applied for a position. Right now, I'm part of the governance team of the bank, and this is with regards to U.S. tax regulations. So we are we're actually responsible for the withholding tax on U.S. source income securities. We call it qualified intermediary, and we have signed with IRS an intergovernmental agreement. And we do have this status as a QI, as a bank, and this is a little bit what I'm working on right now. So yes, I just felt like I wanted to give you a little bit more of a background that I've had. And the transformational leadership, it all started actually not that long ago. So as I've mentioned, I've lived my entire life, I mean, 30 something years on autopilot mode. And again, don't get me wrong, autopilot could be good as well, right? Like when you talk about athletes or sports, right? You have to take your decisions super quick. But in my case, it was like an autopilot kind of execution mode in an inauthentic way, if you want. And at the same time, I realized afterwards that I was a very maladaptive perfectionist that used to see the world in black or white. So my transformation that I referred to started back in, I'd say 2020. And this is when I used to be on maternity leave at home with my daughter. And I started having these thoughts of what is the legacy I want to leave for my daughter? And what would be a little bit the conversation we would have around dinner time, you know, did I want the same messages I've had for myself? Because I've been raised, you know, during Soviet Union times, you know, by a very authoritarian dad. And this is when I said, you know, I actually started, okay, it kind of coincided with the pandemic, with the beginning of the pandemic. And I say it often, I was going through the LinkedIn feed and I came across this post with Ariana Huffington, CEO at Thrive Global. And it said, and I remember we're just in the midst of the pandemic, you know, nobody knew, you know, how this virus moves and whatnot. Everybody was afraid to go outside. And it said, if you can't go outside, go inside. And this is exactly what I did. I felt like I needed to, you know, take this deep dive inside and see who the hell are you? You know, it's like I've been living my life thinking I'm not enough. So I needed to meet that child, you know, within that's been always told you're not enough. So this is how my whole transformation started. And from there, I joined a LinkedIn community. And there I met probably most of the mentors and coaches that I've interacted with. And I think I've reaped up the rewards of incredible, you know, relationships. And this is a little bit how my transformation started. So
let's continue that a little bit. I'm sure we've all seen people make lots of very common mistakes on LinkedIn. What are some of your techniques for using LinkedIn properly and making real connections and getting to know people?
yeah, so as I mentioned, I was invited. Actually, I call it, you know, the man behind my transformation. So there is this gentleman called Brian Wish, and he's the CEO of BW Missions. And basically, at the time we've met, I think it was 2013, he has reached out to me because I was engaging with Simon Sinek's posts. You know Simon Sinek, right?
Yes.
And I'm a huge fan of his, you know, the work he's doing on leadership in the world. So then we kind of engaged into a conversation around leadership and, you know, how the world needs good leadership, you know, and how the world is in need of these shakers and movers. And later on, again, during the pandemic, did I say 2013? It was much later on, but sorry. We've kind of discussed back and forth in the backstages, you know, through the LinkedIn chat for around 2 years. And then he launched his podcast and he invited quite a group of people. I think we were 100 and something people that were his support group for the launch of the podcast. And this is when I started truly connecting with people, you know. So I think definitely the people or the connections we have on LinkedIn, you have to take them offline. This is what I did. Actually, I was in this group where people happened to be authors, speakers, you know, they were coming from these backgrounds, you know, they had this interesting bios. And I still felt like a fraud, you know, that I'm just not enough. And I just had at some point this brain freeze, you know, when my turn came to introduce myself and I didn't know what to say, you know, it just felt so uncomfortable. And I remember after this call, I asked I asked for somebody who was managing the community within, there was a person that was in charge of the activities of the community. And I asked, can I have a coffee with somebody? Because I'm trying to go outside of my comfort zone, meet new people, and can I have a coffee with somebody from the group? And it happened to be actually Linda Tilson,
Oh
you
my.
guys and I know, right?
Yes.
And eventually she became my mentor, and we have this beautiful mentorship story. But I think everything started there truly for me, and I think I've stepped up into my power. I feel like there was a dormant leader within. So Linda was the one that has invested time, and she always believed in me, even when I didn't. So this whole relationship was nurtured. She's given me her time, and she's contained this space for me to grow, right, and believe in myself. And that kind of pretty much made the self-confidence go up. And from there, actually, Linda prepared me for the interview with my current, team. And I actually had the job thanks to the support she's offered. So, yeah, I'm not sure that answers your question, Michael.
It answered really well.
My answers are pretty long. Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, you folks are listening to this. I want you to super pay attention to that, because Irina just put it in a different style of speaking than what you've heard before on the show. But it's still the same principle. Get to know people through LinkedIn, and then set up the Zoom coffee, or however you want to do it, but set up a time outside LinkedIn to interact. And when they're doing posts or shows like this one or whatever, make comments. Add something to the conversation.
Absolutely. Yeah. Be curious as well, right? Just
Yes.
ask questions, I think. Yeah.
When James first started asking me about investing, I thought, where'd that coming from? Because we met during a sales training course. Well, where it came from was he looked me up. He bothered to find out some information. He came with a question about a topic that I was interested in. This is how you make connections. And James is really good at it. I don't know. He's got like 12,000 LinkedIn connections now or something.
I never know when it's a joke or not.
Hard to tell with Texans.
Mike's always joking, but I find that there's this wonderful leadership coach called John Mattone, and it really touched me when I started reading his content 2 or 3 years ago, about how, from his perspective and from his trainings and his teachings, vulnerability is almost the number one not sort of characteristic, and I've kind of been fascinated by that ever since, and I love bringing it up in conversations around coaching, because it for me it's really important, if through be it sales or coaching, or if I'm asking someone a question where which leads them into a vulnerable place, or really the place of answering it is in the vulnerable place, right? For me, it's really important that I have been vulnerable and I can continue to be, and because I guess for me it's a way of, it's definitely not a weakness, it's a way of kind of empowering, feeling powerful, isn't it? It's very kind of, it's a very special place. So I guess the long rambling question is, where do you think vulnerability comes into transformational leadership?
I love it. I love it, James. Actually, thank you for asking this question, because I resonate a lot with the theme of vulnerability. And here, actually, I have my beautiful queen of vulnerability. Where is she? With Daring Greatly, Brené Brown. I love her.
Yes.
Right?
Yes.
Right.
Yes.
So, yeah. I feel like for so long I've been somebody, again, going back to who I was, I've been somebody who's been putting a lot of the mask, and as a perfectionist, it had to be ideal, it had to be the ideal life, the ideal outcome, the ideal meeting, the ideal call, the ideal answer, so I was always somehow anxious and stressed and very focused and attached to the outcome, right? It had to be ideal. So through this whole self-discovery process, I think I've really accepted myself as who I am, with my limitations, and that, not looking to be perfect. I think when I really accepted myself as who I am, this is when I allowed myself to be vulnerable. And this is actually a very, very empowering tool indeed, and I think that inspires others as well, and it gives them permission to be themselves, right?
Exactly.
And how sometimes we just have expectations from others, just make sure those are realistic expectations. So I feel like when you come truly as yourself and as somebody who's vulnerable, it allows others to kind of relax.
It's that phrases it so well, because vulnerability doesn't appear to be, I guess, people who step up to be coaches or who want to be podcast guests or run a podcast, or who I guess are of an entrepreneurial bent, or I guess at times it's like that's our whole world. But if we kind of take a perspective, like a step back, we're quite an odd group. Well, I consider myself odd and weird, and I think for so long, being a go-getter, being a kind of an A-type and an alpha, but an alpha can also be heart-led. So, but I think vulnerabilities for a long time wasn't seen as a characteristic or a public characteristic within that sort of circle, right? And you're absolutely right. It's like the last thing which I believe a lot of the coaching world needs is, we don't need another kind of powerful, like there's plenty of powerful leaders, right? That there's all the outspoken ones, and they do a wonderful job. But you're absolutely right. To open the door to vulnerability, and by giving ourselves permission and then transferring that to pass that permission on to other people, it is almost a gift beyond words, right?
Absolutely. Really, it's empowering. It's very courageous as well, and it's just having that humility as well. When we're vulnerable and we say, and I know in the industry I work in, again, there's still a lot of I guess consciousness to be raised around this topic. What I was going to say is that when you're vulnerable, like, it just gives, and you have the humility by saying, I don't know something, and this is truly something it resonates with me 150%. And this is what I want to see more of that, because people connect through that, right? I work in an industry of inflated egos, and people who are having a hard time actually saying, I don't know. We know you always have to make sure you're confident, and you were prepared, and you project this on, like allowing yourself. And actually, I think, again, why this is empowering and why it could be actually good is because I think when you open yourself to being vulnerable and saying, I don't know, this is when you actually start learning. So, I was reading somewhere, don't be great, be great, don't be great, be greater, or something, is like literally by that, I think you expand as an individual, and you're probably going to integrate a skill set you don't have, because we have a lot of blind spots as well, right? So how do you know? You don't know what you don't know, right? So, I mean, again, I know that I've been, again, like sometimes even at work, I've been penalized because they hear the hesitation in my voice, or I see I'm not self-confident. I care less and less about it. It has less power because I'm not pretending to be somebody I'm not. And I think the most important thing is we need to accept individuals the way they are and leverage their strengths. So this is the way I see managing teams as well. And, I always say, if you were to put in a balance, the strengths and the weaknesses of an individual, the strengths should always overweigh. This is how we leverage strengths and we work as a team together, right? How nice it is to delegate something you're not really good at and one of your colleagues can do because they're really good at it and they can shine through, So this is a little bit of my stand on that.
I really love hearing that. And I like the way you describe it so beautifully.
Mm-hmm.
It's something I too have been penalized quite a bit for, being vulnerable or being humble. And those traits were not valued in the companies I worked in.
That's it.
What I discovered, what I've learned, if I'm leading any kind of team to do anything, I make sure everybody in that team knows two things. They can say anything they want to in the team meeting. Outside the team meeting, we don't say anything to anybody, it just stays inside. They can say anything they want, and the decision is on me. So if someone brings up an idea and we decide to go with it and it fails, they never get blowback from that. That's on me as the team leader, because I made the decision and we were going to do it that way. And this has given people such tremendous confidence to speak up and tell me things, particularly even things in the way I would deliver my messages or whatever. I remember I had this one woman on our team that was really great. She said, we're going to change the way you dress. Now, this came after months of working with that team. And I said, well, okay, why not? What's wrong with it? And she's not like, what's wrong with it? But honest question, what's wrong with it? And she showed me. And I think I do pretty well now. But that would have, it had nothing to do with the company, but that would have never happened if I hadn't built that culture. So I'm really glad that you're doing that.
Absolutely. Is that psychological safety, right? It's that people want to experiment, I guess. People want to have the opportunity. Well, I know we don't like the word errors or mistakes, but people want to learn, let's say, yeah. And they really want to mess it up. And I think when people are allowed to mess up, if I can use this terminology, they just want to know they can always get back to that space and still be loved for who they are. And I think this is the most empowering thing for individuals as well.
And this is a really great thing to teach children. Remember, James and I have discussed this. We both have wives and children and so on. And we sort of came at this separately in our lives and found out we had the same thought on it. Was the kids never get in trouble if they come to us first.
Exactly.
If I find out later from somebody else what they did, that could be a problem. But if they just come up and say, hey, Dad, it's really, at that point, it's not about blame. It's about, what are you going to do now? And that's really fun to bring that into the business world with adults, because it is somewhat unexpected.
Absolutely. I truly think that the world needs more great leaders. And we have to understand as well, that the workforce is changing, right? We have millennials that are going to take over the workforce, and in 5 years from now, they're going to be the majority of our workforce. Understanding as well what they respond to, understanding as well what their needs are, is extremely important. And then, the interesting thing is that they want to be part of a mission. They're not even driven by financial goals. So again, this is key in understanding your workforce and how you can better serve them. Because, we have this concept as well of servant leadership, right? And I'm a big fan of it as well. When you truly serve your employees, you don't have to take care of anything else. They'll take care of everything.
That's such a great quote. We've got a few minutes left on our time. What else would you like to share with our audience?
Maybe I'd like to invite them, Michael and James, to step up into bigger ways, if they have the willingness. I think we shouldn't worry at this point if there is a capacity or capability. I think if there's willingness, again, to kind of, I guess, integrate a new skill set. It's like me, I've gone a lot outside of my comfort zone with this new job, and I always say, you're in a good space as long as you have 1 foot in the comfort zone, 1 foot in the uncomfort zone, and nothing panic. You don't want to go into the panic mode. So I'd like to invite people to step up courageously in taking and assuming leadership in the world. This is what is needed. So yeah, just if you have the willingness, and again, leadership has nothing to do with rank. If you look, if somebody is willing to follow you, either it's your colleague to the left, your colleague to the right, you're a leader. So step up in powerful, courageous ways and dare to lead, I guess.
Beautifully put. Beautifully put. All right, folks, that's it for this week. And we are going to have Irina back. Don't know when exactly yet, but we're going to get her on the books. Leave your comments down below. And there's also a link where you can contact Irina if you have questions. And we'll see you all next week.